You are LockedOn Braves POSTCAST, part of LockedOn Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the LockedOn Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni, and the weekend started out on the right foot at Truist Park as the Braves return home to face another team that I feel like has been in a very similar boat as the Atlanta Braves have this year. It was one of the best teams of 2023, struggling to find runs in 2024. That's kind of a common theme. We'll talk more about that later, but the Braves, they did not struggle to score runs in this one. In fact, they put 5 on the board in the first. That was more than enough for Chris Sale, and Atlanta was able to claim a 7-3 victory over Tampa Bay to open up this 3-game series. We'll talk all about that, the big offense, and unfortunately, another chapter of injuries for the Atlanta Braves to key players, which we will, of course, keep an eye on and monitor this one as Michael Harris was forced to leave this game. We'll talk about all of that and, of course, get you set for Saturday's game, too, as we go along here. Before we get started, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube. Head on over to wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to Locked On Braves as well. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Make sure to check out Game Time. They are an official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. You can just head on over to the Game Time app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Jake, the Braves wasted no time in answering the question I think you and I were asking on Sunday. Can they take a win like they had in Baltimore and replicate that, or at the very least carry some of that momentum into the next day? And the answer was a resounding yes.
They could, and look, they gave up a run in the first inning as well in the top half. So to be able to respond to that, and great job by Chris Sale limiting that, and I know we'll get into it, but to carry that momentum, fall behind early, but then to answer right back, I thought that was very big as well, and then to just continue to add on. I mean, goodness, why just stop at 7? I mean, let's get greedy here, but no, it was great to see, and especially to start a series too. You knock out their starter early, make them get into that bullpen, and kind of set the tone there. Love to see that.
Yeah, and it kind of puts the Rays a little bit more on the ropes throughout the course of the weekend because, as you mentioned, they had to use a whole bunch of their relievers. And, this is a club that I think, much like the Braves, is hoping that the pitching is going to keep things close and manageable because they haven't not been able to get the same amount of run scoring and home runs and all the things that they were doing a year ago. But that's for the Tampa Bay Rays to figure out. We've been trying to figure things out for the Atlanta Braves here on the show, and more to the point, the Braves have been trying to figure it out for about 7 weeks now. Well, a 5 spot in the first inning is a nice way to send a message and also to go ahead and get Chris Sale, not just that run back, but plenty to work with. And it was really all he needed. Another great performance from him. We'll talk more about that later. But, in hopes of having kind of a flashback episode to at least the start of the season, if not last season, we haven't had too many times where in back-to-back games that we've been able to talk about the Braves run scoring being more on point. And we got to talk about it on on Thursday against the Baltimore Orioles, and now a little bit more here on Friday against the Tampa Bay Rays. And it was the home run ball that was present in this game. Marcell Ozuna, who else, set the early scoring off with a 3-run homer. The bad news in that first inning, which we'll get to in a moment, was Michael Harris having to leave with a hamstring issue. But, Jake, are we even surprised anymore when it's Marcell Ozuna in the middle of something big for the Braves offense?
Yeah, you just can't be at this point. I mean, it's the guy's been doing it for a while. I know we talk about it all the time, but in that at bat too, it was a case of the pitcher trying to get a little bit too cute. Marcell had swung over a couple of splitters there, some bad swings. He tried to sneak a fastball by him, and he threw it right down the middle. And you just can't do that to the Big Bear. You can't do that to a lot of major league hitters, but especially not Marcell Ozuna in the way that he's swinging. And look, this Braves offense, sans Ozuna, they've missed those pitches a lot this year, but Ozuna certainly hasn't. You cannot throw him that pitch, and he was right on it, drove it into the chop house to immediately take the lead after giving up 1 run in the top half. So, yeah, it's no surprise at all that Ozuna is mixing it up as he used to do.
Ozuna is in the Ozona right now, that's for sure. That's a terrible pun. We'll stick that away. But the Big Bear, that pitch was definitely right there in the honey hole for him, and he was able to get the Braves started. Now, unfortunately, we have to rewind it back a couple of batters, seeing Michael Harris get on with a base hit to start the game. A great thing to see, but in his attempt to go all the way around to third base, as Ozzy Albies found his way on, Harris had to leave the game with what they're calling left hamstring tightness. we'll know a little bit more about this. I'm sure he'll test it out, and the Braves will, make whatever determination that they need to after this game, and of course going into the weekend. But Jake, we've had to talk about it too many times. Another Braves regular, somebody that they're counting on to get it going and to be a big part of this offense. You don't want to miss him for any amount of time. And Michael Harris is already filling the shoes of somebody you didn't want to miss for any amount of time in that leadoff spot.
Yeah, you hate to see it because it seemed like Snitker had, settled into a groove in the lineup now with Michael Harris and Ozzy Albies at the top, really no matter what, who's on the mound. And Michael been doing a better job of getting on base and kind of feeling that role, and he gives you that speed. We talked about that yesterday, just not a ton of athleticism, not a ton of stolen base threat in this lineup, but Michael Harris is certainly one of those guys who gives you that, and we'll see who takes his place if somebody is needed in that role. Hamstrings, kind of like obliques, are one of those things that you don't want it to become lingering. And if it is a problem, you kind of just want to sit it out for a while and make sure that it goes away so that it's not something that continues to come back. But hopefully it's nothing major. Again, we'll get more news on that, but just hate to see it because it's your new leadoff guy. And like I said, the only other guy really in this lineup that can get on and do some things and create some runs. So you hate to see it for Michael Harris, and just the defense he brings you in center field as well.
Yeah, it's such an important part of what Atlanta does defensively speaking. If you needed a reminder of that, well, it gave you one in the ninth inning the day before. I mean, Harris, even if he's not going well at the plate, can offer you an awful lot there. And like you said, when you start swinging the bat a little bit better, as Harris did about this time a year ago, there's still plenty of the season for him to make an impact at the plate and, of course, on the base paths. So hopefully for Michael, he's not going to miss too much time. Going back to Ozuna, 19th home run, that leads the National League. 60 runs batted in now. That also leads the National League. It has him up there in the top 5 in Major League Baseball where he's been all year. Aaron Judge of the Yankees has kind of rewritten the leaderboard in both home runs and runs batted in, but Ozuna's hanging in there as well. And, of course, he has been the driving force of this Braves offense. But, hey, another driving force and somebody we talked about, you wanted to see a big night from. When was he going to get right? When was he going to get back on track? Show some signs of looking like his old self. Austin Riley showed some big things in this game. He belted a home run, a multi-hit performance for Riley, who finished, a triple shy of the cycle. If he'd gotten there, from what I understand, Jeff Francoeur was going to ride a horse. I have no idea what that has to do with Austin Riley. Maybe he had to be on his horse to get to third. I don't know what all that's about, but this was a great thing to see with Austin Riley finding his way, not on just on base, but finding a ball over the wall again for the first time in a while.
Yeah, great to see. Before I get into that, though, Grant, sorry, I want to say David O'Brien, the Athletic, just said Michael Harris will be put on the IL, and they'll have his hamstring MRI'd on Saturday. So he looks like he will miss some time, and they'll have to see who's going to replace him there. So I hate to hear that.
Yeah.
But good for Austin Riley being able to, get going. I mean, with Michael Harris now going on the IL, you're going to need other players in this lineup to step up and start hitting like they're capable of. And hopefully this is a sign of that for Austin Riley. I know he talked post-game, he's been making some mechanical adjustments. They're all working. They're all trying to tweak and make some adjustments to get going. And hopefully this is a thing that does that for him. Because, when he's going, we absolutely know he can absolutely carry an offense. And he's just so powerful, and we just haven't seen it this year. But we know it's coming. I'm a big believer in him. I said it the other day. I mean, this is a guy that's been in the MVP conversation for years now. I just don't think he all of a sudden has forgotten how to hit. And I've talked about it before. At the beginning of May, it seemed like he was turning a corner. Then he had the side issue that cost him a couple of weeks, and it's been slow coming back for him. So once he gets going and heats up, I mean, he's somebody you can put back in the middle of that order. You can put it back in the 3 spot. Maybe you got to adjust things around now with Michael Harris out, whatever. But he is certainly somebody that when he's on, he can do a lot of damage like he did tonight.
Yeah, he definitely can. And that's just something the Braves need, is for some of these guys to start looking and playing like themselves again. And nobody wants it worse than these players. I mean, I've talked to several of them throughout the course of the year. And, you look at the different sample sizes in the state that you're in, or the stage, I should say, that you're in as far as the season. We're always looking at the state of the team. There's no two ways about that. And there is, I think, a little bit of panic that can set in when the results aren't there for a number of different Braves hitters. But you knew in order for this thing to turn around, it was going to take Matt Olson getting going. I think he's done that. Austin Riley getting going would give the Braves that formidable middle of the order that you expected to see, with Riley, Olson, and Ozuna really being able to play that run production role that they did a year ago. And now the question, of course, will be, what's the top of the order going to look like? And we'll talk more about that as we go along. We also have to talk a lot about Chris Sale, who was front and center in this win with some really great work on the mound, which shouldn't surprise anybody. because Chris Sale has been doing that just about each and every time out. We'll get to all of that as the Braves postcast continues. Here on the Locked On Braves postcast, we pride ourselves in getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's a year-round thing, and you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for your unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have a complicated matter on your hands that requires tax planning, or you just hit that parlay this season and need help to correctly file, just call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. That number again is 1-800-549-1000. The website, tnusa.com/lockedon. Well, Jake, let's jump into the line score and the box score of this one for the Atlanta Braves, who pick up the win, back-to-back victories after their 5-game losing streak. Now 37-30 on the year. Braves with 7 runs, 12 hits, no errors. Atlanta leaving 9 men on base in this one. The Rays, meanwhile, who dropped to 4 games under 500, 33-37, just 3 runs on 8 hits, couple of errors for them, and the Rays left 7 men on base. Winning pitcher in this one, Chris Sale. He is 9-2 now on the season. Littell takes the loss for the Rays. He drops to 2-5 as he got hit hard in just 2 innings by the Braves. And Marcell Ozuna, unfortunately, had to come in and get some work in this one. And so even with the 4-run difference in this game, he picked up his 18th save of the year. And what a play. Let me get to this first. What a play by Orlando Arcia to end that game. He knew what he needed to do seemingly all throughout. There was no play at second base for him. He had to dive and get that throw off to first base, and it was perfect to get a speedy runner and put the end and put a bow on a Braves win. I know we've talked a lot about the things that haven't gone right at the plate, and Orlando Arcia is unfortunately part of that club as well. But what he's done at shortstop and with the glove this year, Jake, you just can't ignore it.
You can. I had somebody on X ask me if I think he's legitimately in the Gold Glove discussion. So hopefully you're listening to the postcast because, look, I can't watch every shortstop out there, but I can tell you Orlando Arcia has been one of the best this season just because of what he's done for the Braves. And the fact is, and I say this all the time, if Arcia was batting 8th or 9th for you in your order, which he should be, and everybody else in the order was doing what they were supposed to and was healthy, you wouldn't worry too much about what he's doing offensively when he's playing Gold Glove level defense like this. And he's done it all year, and he just continues to get better. You know, the one knock on him was the range, and you saw it on that play. He certainly has done much better of that this year. You know, the arm's always been there, but he's been tremendous.
Yeah, when you've got the arm like that, it can also make up for a lot. But I do think he has improved himself, whether it's first step, positioning, just whatever that is that Orlando Arcia has been doing and what the Braves, maybe Walt Weiss and those guys have been doing with him. It has been working most certainly. And you like to see that kind of thing because all those little things, those little plays are pretty important when every run is at a premium, which it has been for the Braves a lot this year. And I think Orlando Arcia has more than held up his end of the bargain out in the field. Now, looking at what was happening on the mound, it was Chris Sale again who was leading the way. He did give up a first-inning run. He gave up a 7th-inning run. But in between, the Rays found him quite disagreeable for their bats. 7 innings of 5-hit ball, 2 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. At this point, Jake, I mean, Chris Sale has proven that he has plenty left in the tank. And when healthy, that this guy is still one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. This is just what Chris Sale seems to do every turn through the rotation.
And 105 pitches, and you got to think that's a product of these extra days that they're getting and the rest, that you can allow him to go deep into a game like that and throw that many pitches, knowing, you know, he's going to get that extra day of rest on the back end. But he's really been doing it all year, and he's gotten that extra rest for most of the year. He's been able to go deep into games, go 7 innings, and like he was good in this one. 17 whiffs, certainly 12 of 25. I actually thought he didn't have some of his best stuff in this one, and that's just how good he has been. He got some double plays early in the game to help him get out of a couple of situations with runners on, but then he just got better as the game kept going. And again, that's what we've seen a lot from Chris Sale. He does seem to get stronger as the game goes on. So again, it's what we have come to expect from him almost every time out. And again, I know we talked about it yesterday too with Lopez. It just seemed like this extra days of rest, they're taking advantage of that, and they seem like they're ready to go. It's not affecting them at all, and they just seem to get better and stronger each outing.
Yeah, and it's an important part of, I think, with the Braves' idea of being a little proactive with both of these guys for different reasons. For Sale, it's obviously you're just trying to keep in mind that he has battled a litany of injuries, not just one or two. I mean, this has been a laundry list of stuff. So to be back, to be healthy, to have that whole winter to get himself ready for the year, the Braves want to do whatever they can to help him maintain that. Meanwhile, for Lopez, clearly going from a reliever back to a starter, that was going to be a bit of a process, but both men do seem to have benefited from the way that they have been deployed with extra rest way more times than not. Sale, in picking up the win, improves to 9-2 on the year. Really, you could make an argument that he could be 10-1 easily because his last outing against the Nationals, he bounced back from the one ugly one that he had against the Oakland A's a couple of times ago. And it was a tough luck loss in a 2-1 ball game. So just about every time Chris Sale's been on the hill, he has given the Braves a chance to win a baseball game, and they did it again tonight. And it's nice to see a game where Atlanta was just really able to put it all together. They got the great pitching from Chris Sale. The bullpen handled any little bit of trouble that came after that and kept the game at an arm's distance. And you got those nice early runs for the Braves. The pitching has done a lot of the heavy lifting, but a 5-run first inning, I got to tell you, that had to be a sight for sore eyes for a lot of people wearing Braves uniforms here, given what we've seen over the past month and a half or more.
Yeah, talk about things that we're become accustomed to. Last year, 5 runs in the first inning. I mean, that was just another Tuesday. But we haven't seen it a lot this year. So, that's obviously big. But going back to the pitching side of things, what Chris Sale did in that first inning where things could have gotten away from him, and to be able to settle down, only give up 1 in that inning, I mean, that's just great pitching from him. So to be able to just get out of that and limit the damage, you do hate you had to use Iglesias in this one to finish things off. I think it was the right call with the top of the order coming up and the tying run on deck. But that's the only thing in this game that, I can really kind of nitpick at that you don't love to see, is that you really hate you even had to get Iglesias warm in this one and then to have to use him too. Certainly hate to see that, but the game was never even in that scenario, never really felt like the game was in jeopardy at that point. But Chris Sale, the pitching staff, Jesse Chavez doing what Jesse Chavez does, they've been outstanding all year. So to be able to finally get that run support, makes things a little bit easier.
How about 40-year-old Jesse Chavez, picked up, quote unquote, off the scrap heap, discarded by the Chicago White Sox, who last I checked could use all the help they could get. He's 40 years old with a 1.29 ERA. And I know that's not the end-all, be-all stat of all pitchers, but that's pretty impressive to me from an old-school standpoint, if nothing else. And if you watch this guy, he just continues to go out there, attack hitters, throw strikes, and reap the rewards of being one of the more efficient relievers when that bullpen door swings open for the Atlanta Braves. It may not look like the prototypical 2020s reliever is supposed to look like, but nobody told Jesse Chavez, and he's doing a great job for Atlanta way, way, way more times than not. This lineup, as you've talked about a little bit and we got into yesterday, it's a different story on this night because you saw 12 hits up and down the order, with the exception, unfortunately, of Adam Duvall. Everybody was able to chip in and do a little something. Even JP Martinez, who had to jump in when Michael Harris got hurt, knocked in a run, scored a run, and we'll see. He stole a base. What kind of things that he can do, because I'd imagine in the short term, he's probably going to be in line for perhaps a little bit of playing time, though the Braves, of course, will likely be looking to bring up an outfielder in advance of Saturday's game that could also factor into that plan.
Yeah, and he's a guy too. I mean, he has good defense. He has a lot of speed, as we saw. So he if he gets that chance, Forrest Wall wasn't playing with Gwinnett on Friday, so I don't know if something's going on there. Eli White could be another option too. So the Braves have some guys who can play good defense at the very least and have some speed. And JP Martinez, he has a good speed and power profile. We've seen that at the minor league level. So we'll see if he gets that opportunity. But, just talking about this lineup up and down, like you said, everybody had a hit except for Duvall. And he still had a hard hit ball in this game. Everybody in the lineup had at least one hard hit in this game. So that's great to see. That's always what I'm looking for. Still some strikeouts in there, but I didn't feel it was, a ton, from what we're accustomed or what we've become accustomed to seeing with this Braves team. So, right. Love to see it in this one, obviously, just up and down, everybody contributing. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, you certainly are. And the Braves with back-to-back wins after the 5 consecutive losses. I mean, that was the longest losing streak that we'd seen for an Atlanta Braves team since 2017, the end of that year. And we obviously know the kind of winning that's gone on in the 6 seasons that followed. The Braves continue their trek through the American League East and a lot of interleague play as well. And the Braves are 16-9 now against the AL this season. And they've also played extremely well at home, have the Braves. That's been a big part of their success. There's been some road woes where the record's maybe not quite as bad, but it's certainly been hard to come by when it comes to the runs. So I'm sure they were happy to come on home, put on those home uniforms, the home reds, just like Jake here on the show, and get themselves back in the win column. I want to circle back one more time to Austin Riley because, again, I feel like he needed this night. It was overdue as far as the power display is concerned. And you got to think and you got to hope that, for a guy that works as hard as Austin Riley, and I've talked to him year after year after year. I met him when he was playing A-ball just after he was drafted. You don't outwork Austin Riley. So when it comes to, how much players care about trying to hit their way out of this slump, you can bet that Austin Riley has been trying to do everything that he can to get out of it. So good to see some results for what I'm sure has been a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's great to see it for Austin Riley. Again, as you mentioned, somebody that works hard, somebody I don't really worry too much about. Because you just know he's going to get going at some point. It's somebody, too, that he's had to adjust a lot at the big league level. You think about when he first came up, he set the world on fire. Teams kind of adjusted to him. He kind of struggled there for a little while. He had to adjust back. And it feels like it's been that way for him throughout his career. So, again, with his work ethic and just the track record that he has, he's going to get it going. But it has to feel great to have a night like this where you pick up 3 hits. You get 3 hard hit balls, you see some success, you see some of these hard hit balls land. I mean, he's hit the ball hard all year long. That hasn't been the issue. I just haven't been making enough consistent hard contact, striking out a little bit too much, whipping too much. But to be able to see some of that hard hit success that he's hasn't been having, to see some of that batted ball luck go his way, had to feel really good.
Yeah, and if you told me we'd be in the, second week of June and that Marcell Ozuna would have combined for more home runs than Matt Olson and Austin Riley, I would have sent out the SOS as soon as I got that message because that's just not something you expected from this group. But a lot of baseball left to be played. Ozuna, obviously, you'll take everything you can get. And Riley and Olson, yeah, they've got the track records to do a lot more than we've seen, especially over the past 6-7 weeks for this Braves club in general. And tonight was a nice step in the right direction with the win over the Tampa Bay Rays. When we come back, we will get into game 2 of this 3-game series and talk a little bit about Charlie Morton, who will be facing one of his old teams as he suits up against the Tampa Bay Rays for the Braves on Saturday. That comes your way next on the Braves Postcast. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch, so keep that in mind. Those killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their low-price guarantee. Well, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Game Time has last-minute deals on lots of things, and you can save up to 60% off buying those tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Just create an account and redeem the code. That's LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off that first purchase. Download the app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That's Game Time. Well, Jake, it's the Tampa Bay Rays in town for the weekend. The Braves, they would very much like to secure a series victory, which is something that they could do behind Charlie Morton, who'll be on the mound on Saturday. Ryan Pepio is going to be on the hill for the Tampa Bay Rays. And, Charlie has shown an awful lot late in his career. The Rays were another team that had banked big on him being a part of their rotation some years ago. Braves able to lure him home after a couple of years there, and I think they're pretty happy they did. As you look at the Charlie Morton versus Rays matchup, which I, again, just find to be a bit intriguing, it was kind of a place where he took what he'd done in Houston, and I felt like even took it to another level once he joined the Rays.
Yeah, he's had, two really good teams, really 3 if you count the Braves. The Astros have obviously done a great job with pitching. Tampa Bay, we know for years, have done a great job of getting guys and developing them as pitchers, maybe taking a pitch, tweaking things here or there that they see that really helps guys take off. We know the Braves, we've seen, have done a great job of that as well. But, Charlie Morton, the second half of his career, to be able to get to 40 years old, we've talked about all the time, you have to continue to make adjustments. And I think he's kind of in that place right now. It's been up and down for him here lately. He gave up 8 runs against the Nationals, gave up just 1 hit in his next start against the A's, but did walk 5 in that one, but then gave up 5 runs in his last time out against the Nationals. Maybe the Nats just have his number. I don't know. But on paper, feels like a pretty good matchup for Charlie Morton, a team that does strike out a good bit. But Charlie Morton, he's amazing what he's been able to do again at this point in his career. And we've said it all the time, if he's your fourth starter, whatever you want to call it, I think with Wade Lopez's pitching, I think if you want to put a number on it, he's definitely the fourth. Many team would take Charlie Morton.
Yeah, no, I think more teams than not in Major League Baseball would be very happy to have their number 4 starter be Charlie Morton. If that's a quote unquote problem that you're dealing with, you're in a pretty good place as an overall club from a depth perspective. I talked to Charlie for about 30 minutes during the last homestand, just kind of about where he is in his career and, what he has looked to do, what's made him successful, kind of what he's focused on this year. And his buddy Jesse Chavez, who's also 40 years old, 2 40-somethings on a pitching staff these days, incredibly rare. In fact, the Braves, I believe, are the only team that has them. And if I check this correctly at the start of the year, they may be the only 40-year-old pitchers in the big leagues right now. I'd have to double check. And if you want to do that, Jake, feel free to be my guest on that as far as the fact-checking department is concerned. But, Charlie said that he feels incredibly fortunate to have been in the big leagues long enough to have more bad games than a lot of guys even get to the mound in a big league uniform, in a big league situation. He's got a great perspective, and there's just not too many people that you enjoy talking about just kind of baseball and life and everything in between than Charlie Morton. And we'll see what he's able to do for the Braves on Saturday as he faces one of his old teams. A weird stat for Atlanta that I was looking at in this one, 5+ runs in back-to-back games for the first time since way back on the 20th of April. That was back after that 3-week start to the season where it seemed like, hey, the Braves will pick up where they left off, but they are hitting more doubles than homers, but that's okay because they're scoring a ton of runs. And then somebody turned the lights out on this offense. But what a weird stat, and what has been a very strange and sometimes perplexing, and I'll use the word again, baffling run of production for the Braves that has been far below what we expected.
Yeah, it certainly has been that. So great to see them. Again, we're going to need to see more of a stretch than this, but, at least to see that happening here last couple of games. And it's, it is. I mean, we've said it all the time. I know people are tired of hearing us saying it for 2 months now. This team is too talented to be as bad, one of the worst offenses in baseball. That's what they've been for almost 2 months now. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense with the talent that they have there, even with the guys that are injured. So, that's going to turn around at some point. We're hoping this is kind of the turning point of that. Now, to fact check you real quick, Justin Verlander's 41. So he's the other, along with Jesse Chavez and Charlie Morton, that are both 40 years old. David Robertson, who pulled a Tyler Matzik the other night, he struck out Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman with 2 on in a game. He's 39 years old.
Yeah, so there's just not that many. I mean, I feel like when I was growing up, not to date myself here, but late 80s and early 90s, really all through the 90s, you just felt like, okay, there's somebody's got a 40-year-old pitcher. I mean, I'm old enough to remember actually watching Nolan Ryan pitch live, so there's that. But you just don't see it as much anymore, and it's just the evolution of the game, what have you, that has changed an awful lot. But yeah, that Justin Verlander guy, he might join that Nolan Ryan guy, not just in pitching for the Houston Astros, but maybe in that place, that little village in upstate New York where they put the best players of all time. But that's another discussion for another time. Braves and the Rays will meet at 4:10 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. It's Charlie Morton against Ryan Pepio. Morton 3-3, a 4.12 ERA, 5 runs his last time out in 5 innings. 4 of those earned against Washington. Only 3 strikeouts for him. Pepio's 4-3 with a 4.17 ERA on the season. It's game 2 of the 3-game set. That will wrap us up here on this edition of the Braves Postcast. We appreciate you, as always, riding along with us. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Leave us those likes and those comments. Share the show with a friend to help the channel grow. And subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, it was a good night at the office for the Braves, who take the opener against the Tampa Bay Rays. We'll catch you later this weekend for more of the Braves Postcast. And until then, for Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. So long, everyone.